I'm Charlie Mato-Toyela with Blue Bear Flutes. Of course, our website, bluebearflutes.com, and our Instagram is also Blue Bear Flutes, our Twitter, which is kind of in disrepair right now because I'm just really not much into Twitter. There's been some crazy stuff going on there in the last little while. But anyway, we do thank you very much for following us. If you do, if you haven't been following us, stop right now, go back and watch about 10 of my videos, then subscribe, then come back and watch this video, and you'll know where I'm coming from. Today, I just wanted to share something with you. I've had an opportunity in recent years to share my thoughts and ideas and beliefs alongside my experience of flute making, having made millions of flutes. We make Native American flutes. A lot of people in the world can't say that they make Native American flutes. As a matter of fact, here in the United States, legally, only a person who is a card-carrying Native American, or maybe someone who falls under 2 or 3 other stipulations, can actually say that they make Native American flutes. For me, I'm not really about that, but that's the reason that the word Native American style has come up. So you make Native American style flutes if you're not actually Native. That's always kind of confused me. I don't see, because you can make a Turkish flute or a Chinese flute, or you can make an English flute if you want to and still call it as such. But Native American flutes, because of laws, and I'm thankful in a way, don't get me wrong, I do like the fact that there has to be a line drawn. It just doesn't seem fair to all the other cultures in the world. And having said that, I do want to share with you my ideas that may seem slightly askew to that. I mean, I don't feel like they are. It's the same me. But for the last 10 or so years, we've been on YouTube making videos on how to make Native American flutes and how to play Native American flutes. And I have shared with and helped and guided millions of people all over the world how to make these lovely instruments that I absolutely I feel these are a part of my life. It's a big thing to me. It is the simplest instrument in the whole world, in my opinion, probably the easiest one anybody could ever learn how to play. And the reason that this video is titled as such is simply because I wanted to let you know how things go on the other side of reality, I guess, if we could call it that. So when we first started making these videos, I angered a lot of flute makers, really made a lot of flute makers angry, because I was sharing trade secrets. I was teaching people how to do things that only a handful of people in the world. When I started making flutes, look at the date of this video, when I started making flutes about 33, 34 years ago, Native American flutes, when I started doing that, it was just a handful of us. There weren't many people making Native American flutes at that time. And having said that, of course, down the road there were a few more, and that's when you've seen the giant companies blossoming that started making flutes, and they would have trade shows that they would go to sell them, or have people that they would sell them through, flute players that were okay or good even maybe to play their flutes for them, and they would promote them, just kind of like what we do today here on YouTube. And then eventually the Flute Circle was born. When the Flute Circle was born, it was kind of out of need because people needed to share information. And the reason, once again, that I wanted to share this information with you guys is because it's part of my life. It's a big part of my life. And today, I had the misfortune of receiving a phone call that reminded me of the old days that I have to share this with you. I have to get not only off my chest, but just maybe make you aware of it. Minor struggles that people go through in their regular everyday life, and things that cause, cultures, problems, and what have you. But 10 years ago or so, I was approached by people often at that time, asking me, how do you do this, and how do you make that, and what about this, and where do the fingerings go, and all. People were asking me this question. I had taught, usually for free, and if not for free, then for the cost of the materials, classes on how to make Native American flutes all over the world. Mexico, Florida, all throughout Florida, Tennessee, Oklahoma, everywhere. We've taught classes, Wyoming, we've taught classes. This is back on the in-person days, not on the YouTube days. But then, like I said, people asking us these questions, I eventually thought, well, there has to be a better way to reach people. How can I tell everyone at once what the answer to this question is, or at least have some kind of reference? I thought I need to make a flute making book, right? So I put together, my wife and I kind of threw together a little pamphlet that some of you may still have, that was information about the flute, and even mentioned that there are other flute makers in there and such. Down the road from there, I thought, this thing is really just outdated and not good enough, so I made my first book on how to make Native American flutes, The Art of Flute Making. Down the road from there, we still get questions on a regular occasion. Somebody will say, how do you do this? I just don't understand how to do this. And I'm thinking to myself, these people have not watched my YouTube channel because I always send them a link now to YouTube. So when we make new flute making videos, usually these days, unfortunately, they're not inspired by customers asking questions like they used to be. It used to be somebody say, how do you do this? I'd make a video and post it. Because I felt like sharing what I knew with everyone was more critical. It was more beneficial, not only to me, but to my community, which is the world, obviously. I felt like it was more important to share that information and give it away than it was to keep it for myself and make my couple of dollars off of it, that I would make. So I did. And there was another reason that I started sharing this information too, and this is getting to the point of this video. My wife and I used to sell on one of the big online auction platforms on the web, and we used to sell with them on a regular occasion, and we did pretty good. It really financially helped my struggling family out in the old days pretty well, and it was really great. But at the time, I still was under the philosophy that a Native American flute, not a flute necessarily made by a Native American, which is what it was, but a Native American flute was valuable, but the amount of value in it wasn't something that you could buy or pay for. It wasn't something, and don't get me wrong, I'll stop right here. I'm not one of those flutes are birthed thing. I'm so sorry, y'all. Sorry to the people who say that is. I'm not one of those kind of people, but thinking that this instrument was something more than it was worth thousands of dollars. I remember one guy posted this long story about how he was walking through the forest in Canada and seen owl feathers on the ground, and he went home and prayed about it and had a dream, and this backstory was tremendous. I mean, this dude really should work for Disney or at least Netflix, but I can't believe people would buy a flute for thousands of dollars based on that backstory. It was terrible. And then on the other side of things, there are flute makers today. You see, this flute's been around for a while. It's a little shiny. It has never had a coat of lacquer on it. It's shiny because of my fingers here. There are flute makers out there that thought, oh, how many coats of what kind of lacquer do you put on your flute? And I'm like, I don't use lacquer. I did for a short while because people asked me and asked me and asked me and asked me, and I gave in, and I really shouldn't have. But it still doesn't make the value of this beautiful, extremely wonderful, soul-lifting, just so perfect of a thing. It doesn't make it any better than what it was. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, it made it less. From the musical end of things, lacquering, shellacking, using unnatural products on it, oils of nuts that you don't know if are safe because they don't sell them to eat in a grocery store, that kind of thing. And then granted, there are things, you could make oil out of apple seeds and it'll kill you, so don't go making oil out of apple seeds, y'all. But anyway, there's a lot of things that people have done to it to make it more than what it really is. When I got this phone call today, it was from someone who bought a flute making kit from me a few days ago. And usually when I get phone calls, it's one of 2 or 3 different kinds. When is my order going to ship? I'm excited and impatient and whatever, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. Gratification is always really cool, and I'm about that. And I'm sorry for everybody in the world who's ever taken any amount of time for me to get my order to you, your order to you. So, but this person who had called said that they were instructed by another flute maker not to try to make a flute. And it floored me. I didn't know what to think. And I feel like, it's me, y'all. I'm super easygoing. You just don't know. Way too easygoing. And I come from a different background, so we'll talk about that one day, but super easygoing. And it just floored me, and I felt like, I hope these people didn't feel like I was lashing out at them, because I wasn't worried about losing their money at all. Not these days. Those were the old days when I needed to. Today, I wasn't worried about that. I was really upset that a flute maker told them that no matter how hard they try, unless they had special tools and special this and know how to do that and know how to do this, that they couldn't make their own Native American flute. That'd be like Bob Ross telling people, if I were to tell you, you can't make a flute, why are you wanting to watch my videos? You're crazy. Why would you want to make a flute all your own? It'd be like Bob Ross telling you, you can't paint. Why do you even pick up the, don't even bother. Oh my gosh, that hurt me so deeply that I had to start this video for it. And we've been talking about it. I say my wife and I run through these things, and we've been talking about it. And I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what the best solution for this is, because the customer wanted a refund. I'm going to give them a refund. Haven't shipped their order yet because it's only been a couple of days ago. But the fact that this other flute maker, who I had to Google to see who he was, and even when I Googled it, I was really not sure if it was him or not, because there were so many different people with a similar name and what have you. I found one guy that makes 4 different types of flutes, and he's apparently borrowed the culture of 4 different groups of people that aren't his own. I think that he learned how to make these flutes from, or what have you. So he makes this kind of flute, this kind of flute, this one, this one, this one, and his selling technique was, you can't do that. And I don't know in what respect my customer had gotten his information, if he had emailed it to him, called him, talked to him in person, maybe they sent a video with him on it. Here recently myself, I've been on videos, reviews of other people's, and usually my reviews are really great. However, getting to the point of all this, once again, some people who have reviewed my flutes in recent times have said, well, they sound too this, or they sound too that, or they look a little this, look a little that. And as with most things in life, these people try to say things and sound positive, but they're really putting you down. And you don't have to pay attention to them. I don't pay attention to them. Take my advice on that. One thing I'm going to show you. Don't listen to people that try to put you down. They're not worth your time, not even on a sub-microscopic level. But when they were talking about that, all I could think in my mind is this person's been playing the flute for about 8 or 10 years, and they've only played the most expensive and the most fancy and the most this and the most that. And have you ever tried one of so-and-so's flutes? Or have you ever played such and such flutes? You know, that's the kind of people they are. And forgive me, once again, all you flute circles out there that are watching me right now, I love you. I really do. I appreciate you in such a way I hope you can learn to appreciate me. But really, these people that promote ideas of a Native American flute being like a trading card just kill me. People that charge countless dollars to teach you how to play the easiest thing in the world to learn. Easiest thing, not just easiest flute. Easiest thing in the world to learn. It's easier than learning to breathe. And you did that a long time ago. But they, squeeze a lot of money out of you sometimes, some people, and try to convince them that they're the master or what have you. And really, I've heard some beginners that were just amazing. But to me, everybody's amazing. Expressing yourself through something that connects with you in such a big way is very important in life. And people that don't get to experience it suddenly find something that they can do that with, and then they start doing it, and it opens a world to them, and they don't know how to react. And because of that, once again, the one thing that is birthed outside of animals and people, the one thing that is birthed is the process of organizations becoming a little bit too big for their britches, is what we used to call it where I grew up. And they start promoting fancy this and fancy that, and eventually you have do you have your flute maker with you? Do you have your flute maker? Trying to promote these elaborate ideas of what the simplest, coming from a Native American that is also a musician, the simplest thing in the entire world that you don't need to spend thousands of dollars on. Doesn't mean you need to buy imported versions, because going back to my story, the reason I started making these videos, I was partly inspired by a little whistle, a little imported whistle, imported from out of the United States, not made by Native American hands, not made by people who are interested in Native American culture even. A whistle that we collectively, most people call a powwow whistle, sold on that auctioning platform for 50 bucks. And I thought, wow, a 75-cent whistle sold for 50 bucks. That's nuts. Then I read their backstory. I bought it from a powwow. I believe a Native American made it, And then I'm on this auction platform with an actual Native American made flute that was tuned to sound good. I mean, it wasn't tuned, it was tuned by ear, but it was made to sound good. People will tell you, people that have my flutes for a long time, when I used to just tune them by ear, not tune them to scales or what have you, they loved them. So but it sold for more money than my actual Native American made, not that that's really, once again, apples and apples here. It's still a Native American flute, even if it's just a Native American style flute. But that imported flute was not even remotely a Native American anything, other than it may have had some like chicken feathers and some rabbit hair wrapped around it. But this is the reason that I started making these videos, to help people. And I found along the way that it is so fulfilling and enriching in my life, not selling things, not making money. I have been a salesman in previous experiences in life on a big scale, and sold things that you just, big business, and small business. All salesmen don't usually start at the top. But I've been a salesman. That's not why I make flutes, not because I need to sell something. I could buy things online and sell them over here, or be like some of those import companies in the United States today that import Native American actual looking flutes that are called Native American flutes, and have some, I could be the guy that signs off on them and stamps my seal and verifies them as being Native American made. And then I could make lots of money and not even have to lift a finger. Maybe I could make all my flutes with a box cutter. Anyway, staying off of that bandwagon for a minute. But the reason that I want to tell you guys about this is because this customer was disheartened, and that hurt me. I mean, it killed me. I've spent the last 10 years trying to tell everybody, not just the groups of people that I've went and taught flute making to, schools, and I get contacted by school kids from 20 years ago that say, Charlie, I don't know if you'll remember me. I was in such and such class. And it brings a tear to my eye thinking that this guy remembered me to begin with, but is still making flutes. That's fulfilling. So I'll never forget this one guy that, speaking about people who think that they can't do this, the simplest thing in the world to do. Back at a 4-H program my wife and I gave, and my oldest boy, who's in his 20s now, was just a little guy. Wasn't a whole lot of help for making flutes and stuff, but he knew at that time, and he works with us today, and he's a huge help. I mean, he could go off and do his own thing, but he's nice enough to work with us. We were at this 4-H thing, and I don't know if any of you know anything about people that work for the power companies, but a lot of them are missing digits, missing thumbs especially, and stuff. And as a woodworker, we notice that kind of thing. As I've lost the end of my finger, and fortunately it works, it's back on. But those guys lose digits and lose arms and stuff all the time because power's difficult to deal with, and even skilled people that are so incredible. Anyway, long story short, one of our assistants was a lineman who didn't have any hands. Lost his hands and his arms from power, electrical power, in the power lines. Kids, stay away from power lines, okay? I gotta tell you that right now. I've been shocked by 220, 330. I've been hit by lightning twice. It is no joke. I'm not kidding you. I've been shocked on a regular basis. I hate getting shocked. I really do. I'm like a cat in a hot tin roof. I hate getting shocked. My wife hears me because I conduct electricity really bad because I'm hairy, I think, and because I only wear natural clothing for the most part. And if I get out of a seat that's not made out of leather, I immediately get zapped. Spring, winter, summer, and fall. And so this guy, who already has my admiration and respect, family members that were power workers, and I've done a lot of power work, he was our assistant. This dude made flutes by himself. He didn't have any hands. Let me tell you, anybody can make a Native American flute. Easiest thing in the whole world. And if you don't want to make it, that's cool. I am good with that. I don't want to make a barge. I do want to make cars, but I don't want to make, I thought about making airplanes. There's things that I don't want to make. I don't want to make a proton accelerator, okay? I don't want to do it. I know how, that's enough. But this thing's so easy to make. I'm not telling you, trying to convince you to make one, but at least don't feel like you can't. That's all I'm asking of you. In this day and age, there's a lot of people in the world, and I'm not even going to bring up which ones. I'm not even going to tell you which organizations. They're all over the place. They're everywhere. I'm trying to tell you you can't. And I come from the school of I can. So I'm not trying to teach you that, but it's my life. It's who I am. And for these people to call me and say, I got to cancel my order, this dude said I can't make a flute, it just floored me. It kills me. It really hurts me in a big way. So anyway, that's where we're at. And what I have done today for other flute makers, not only help them learn I know I've mentioned in a recent video, I know a flute maker who used to tell me, I can't believe you use a burning tool for that. That's crazy. I use this, this, and this, and this. I'm like, no, burning tools work pretty well. You know, they're not an original native idea. You know, we didn't use metal for burning holes and stuff for the most part. We had other ways to do that, but not burning tools. But that's what works, and it's simple. You know, it works and it's simple. So natives who modernize themselves and learn how to grow with the world, you know, we use computers, cell phones, and metal rods. But he told me that, and then I see a picture of him in the newspaper down the road from that time using a burning rod to burn a flute to a big fancy event that he was invited to. Hadn't been making flutes for 20 years or 30 years at that time. Him, not me. I've been making them for a lengthy time. And he'd been invited to some fancy thing because he dressed the part. And I'm not dissing him either. You know, I still consider him a friend. He's had some loss in his life, and I appreciate him as an elder, as an older person. But you know, I'm not an I can't kind of person. I really am not an I can't kind of person. And once again, I just had to tell you guys because, like I said, I feel like in the years that I've been showing people to make flutes and how to play flutes and this kind of thing, I felt like I've tried to at least not only help to promote positive aspects of this and to help work beyond my own personal ideas of cultural appropriation of things, you know, to get beyond this. I've taught everybody how to make flutes. You know, when I see non-natives making flutes, I'm like, huh, you know, you don't have to be Native American to make a flute. You don't have to be one to play it, obviously. But for a non-native to put down an actual native flute for its quality, or to say that it's not good when it's following, you know, historical guidelines, that's nuts. Saying that a flute has to be this, has to be shiny and glossy, and has to have laser etching in it, and, you know, please. Yeah, just something for you guys to think about. You know, like I said, I've tried to promote this. I feel like other flute makers have benefited from that. I feel like other flute players have benefited from that. There are a lot of them that hate my guts, and that's cool. I'm completely okay with that. There's a lot of big ones that have contacted me and said, Charlie, listen, congratulations on what you got going on. And dude, I'm going to tell you, getting that kind of, Eric, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's good stuff. It really is. It's how it's supposed to be. It touches my heart. So anyway, once again, I'll stop. I got to stop talking to you now. But y'all, make flutes, play flutes, if it's what you want to do. You know, it really is. So keep it up. If it's not, it's time to stop. Please stop. Y'all take care. Charlie Mato-Toyela signing out for Blue Bear Flutes and bluebearflutes.com. I hope to see you again very soon.